Hey, we're back with Equal Time Soccer. We are not 100% sure if you can hear us, so we're going to get confirmation on that. We're using some new technology, but we're here at the Aurora game. This is Dani Foxhoven Young.
Hello, hello.
Danny, we're going to wait. I want to wait to fully introduce you till I get confirmation that the sound is working. Just talk about first thoughts seeing the stadium.
I mean, the stadium is amazing. This is my first time here. It is incredible for these girls to come out and be on this kind of a stadium in this kind of an atmosphere. I am so excited for everyone to be here. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
You already got merch? You had to get merch?
I did. I had to support. Yeah.
You had to, okay, the sound is good.
All right, we're here.
I joked we're pre-professional as well because I had to set up a microphone because we're doing, big kid stuff now.
Yeah.
So now that I know everybody can hear, I'm going to give a proper introduction to my co-host. I am so lucky to be joined by a legitimizer. We got a pro. This is an NWSL champion. This is someone who is a star standout player at the Portland Pilots soccer team with so many other soccer greats you've heard of. This is Dani Foxhoven Young. Welcome, Dani.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
We're blessed. This is fun. We're finding out what happens when attention's put on women's soccer, and we're gonna see the result of it today.
You know what? People have come out big for this team. We're so excited to see all the supporters out here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a community-owned team, community-led team, so everybody's here just being super excited about it. Yeah.
Talk about this bringing you back. So, I mean, if you haven't played in a few years, talk about just seeing the field, seeing the girls warming up. What does it make you feel? Does it give you butterflies back? What does it, or make you want to go out and play or try out?
Yeah, you know what? It did actually. So I have been out of the game now for a little while. I was coaching after I got done playing, but this made me want to jump back into it. I was watching the girls warm up. It's like a perfect grass. It's a beautiful evening out, like perfect temperature. This is an ideal night. Plus, it's home opener, so I know that they're super excited, and that made me, a little jealous. I'm gonna be honest, a little jealous.
Well, and there's a funny connection we discovered after getting Dani on to do these shows with us. Is that you played with one of the Green Bay Glory's assistant, Sarah Hagan, right?
Yep.
So talk about your experience playing with her, when you first played with her, and what your memories playing with her.
Yeah, sure. So Sarah and I go way back. I don't know if she would recognize me now, but I'm sure she would. There's been enough years past, but we played together in youth soccer growing up. So we were both on the youth national teams, probably from 14 to under 23. So, since then, that's where I'm worried. Since I've been 23 to now, things have changed a little bit, but yeah, we grew up together, really cut our teeth together at the youth national team. So known her for a really long time.
Awesome.
Crazy how the world's come back together.
Do you think, you didn't see her out on the field really doing anything. Do you think she could go out and put some minutes in? Because look, it's still in the realm of possibility.
Listen, I hope she's one of those. I hope she's a player coach. I hope to see her out there tonight because she's a beast, man. She was one of the best I've ever played with. So, she's incredible. I'm sure she's just really excited and has given a lot of experience and knowledge to these women. So I'm excited to hear about it.
Yeah. So and our opponent, like I said, the Green Bay Glory. One thing about them, they're the only other independent team in the W League in terms of they aren't attached to an academy structure. They're not attached to a men's academy or a men's team in the USL. And so it kind of shows in how you see the teams presenting because they are the spotlight. It is not about, it's not about the youth academy. It's not about anything else. It's about these women. And it's really cool. You see Green Bay making content on, making fun content. They were doing bus karaoke on the way down. So my mind was blown by that. So I had to ask, I thought that was it's good to stay loose for the game. Did you ever do any bus karaoke?
Oh my gosh. So you spend so much time in buses and traveling on planes and everything. Yes. Bus karaoke, all plane karaoke, which I'm sure was really annoying for everybody, but yes, all that kind of stuff did happen for sure. I mean, you're looking for something to take up your time in hotel rooms and buses and airports and whatever. So yeah, that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it fun.
I was surprised. Well, and look, there's some long drives in the USL in the Heartland Conference because the opponents are in, they're in Nebraska, they're in Missouri, they're in Chicago, and then they're in Green Bay. So, Green Bay has some road trips ahead of them
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
And Green Bay has a couple of connections to Minnesota too. I wanted to mention they have a goalkeeper who's going to be, I think, starting today. We saw a lineup peek out early, and actually they're showing it now. Alyssa Stambach on the stream, and she's the keeper from Bemidji State. Another local connection, the person calling our games, Kelly Schultz, is the broadcaster for Bemidji State. So it's kind of cool to see, Dani, like people at all aspects of the game getting the opportunity to rise up, like these opportunities.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the soccer world really is so small, but this kind of stuff is where you get to, that's like how I also got to know Sarah, you know, way back in the day, was youth national teams, and then you end up playing for summer teams where you're traveling and living with host families and playing with girls from all over the place, and that's what really makes the soccer world like so special and small when you're in it. So yeah, it's cool to see. It's cool to see how that works. I'm glad that they get to explore some other place and play with new teams and under new coaches, and yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, so Green Bay's it'll be fun to see because we start with Green Bay today. The end of the season ends with a 2-game week-long weekend after the 4th of July in Green Bay, and so I think there's going to be a lot of Aurora fans who maybe go make that trip. I think they'll be the other team too in the division who maybe is pulling some fans because they've done a lot of public-facing things and a little bit more of that than other teams. So I would expect they have a nice little stadium too. I don't know if it's if the Green Bay college team plays there, but it'll be fun to see. So. Yeah. Turning to Aurora and turning to thinking of the players walking out here because fans are starting to fill in. It's cool to see. It's not nearly full yet. You can see in the background a little bit.
Yeah.
But so talk about the first time you played in a really big crowd and just the obvious emotions. What did you go through when you first walked out, and kind of what did you first feel and process?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think it's so fun. At every different level, you get to experience something new. So when I was really young and growing up and played in some national championships, and that was fun. You have people are coming from the rest of the tournament to come watch the national championship games and stuff, and that was cool. And then I went to college at the University of Portland. They had a huge crowd at the time, so we'd get 10,000 people to those games.
Oh, wow.
Which was amazing. Yeah.
Wow.
So I remember going to watch my first game there before I had committed, and was like, this is incredible. They have a drum squad that comes out. They play this, with the drums and then the smoke, and I was like, this is where I need to be. That kind of mentality then changed into who goes to the Portland Thorns games. That was the same atmosphere, just on a much bigger scale. Yeah. So then that, it just kept one-upping, and then that game turned into, the home opener, the first ever NWSL game at Portland Thorns. So it's sold out. It was the most attendance of any women's soccer game up until literally just recently, you know, and at Champions League, I think in Europe now, so I just think women's soccer is getting more and more attention, and clubs are starting to put more actual real resources into this kind of a thing, and I love seeing that because it's just gonna lift the whole sport up, which is what we all need. That's what we all want to see.
Yeah. And talk about what it does to players in terms of are there some players, like you said, I mean, in a way it's motivating because it's holy, I get to do this is so cool, I dreamt of this, and it's and they kind of knew too. They knew this was going to be a big game. Yeah. But then there's some players, where it affects you in a negative way, right? So how do you deal with that?
Gosh, I mean, I think nerves are something that you deal with. Every athlete probably has to deal with something like that. But this, for a lot of girls, is probably going to be, one of the bigger attendance that they're going to be able to play. And the good news is that this stadium, this is going to be home field. Hopefully, it keeps growing. But I'm sure there's nerves associated with everybody. No matter what, you play because you want to do well. You're nervous because the fans, the people watching, your teammates, all of that stuff. So hopefully, they can kind of get past that. It gives them some extra energy and doesn't take away from that. Because all we want to see is a good game tonight.
Yeah. Well, and so when you played in summer before in these summer leagues, the challenge of it, which is, Aurora had the Rough Triplets came in 2 days ago, I think, or something like that, a few days ago. So they're still getting players in. A lot of the team has had maybe 2 weeks. Yep. But talk about the challenge of that, because of course you're not going to be a perfectly oiled machine, but how, talk about the challenge of that when you just hop in and then you need to perform.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Honestly, I think that's kind of the fun of it. But yeah, it is really like you get in and you jump right into playing. So there's no time for jet lag, or you're jumping right into a new team. You got to make the team work together really well, really quickly. So the coaches have their hands full with trying to figure out how do we get all of these different style of players coming from their colleges that play very different styles to work in a cohesive team here. But I think that is kind of the fun of it. You get challenged by other players who bring something new to you, and so I think that, yeah, it'll be really cool to see how they all adjust and how that changes throughout the year as players come in and out. And I know colleges want certain girls back earlier in the summer and they release some later. So I'm sure that the team will change throughout the summer, but hopefully we'll see them continue to progress to the team that they can be at the end of the summer.
You've also been a coach, which is cool for that perspective. You coached at Purdue Northwest in D2, and so that perspective is interesting too. In the sense of the W League, you see there's plenty of D1 players, but of course we know you could be a star player at D3 and you're going to make an impact in the league, maybe. So talk about that mix of like how different players, when you come into a summer league team like this, coming from the different roles at different levels of college, like how you can see people surprise you, how you find out how people can mix that in that way.
Yeah, well, I actually think that these summer leagues are a really important thing for girls to be able to show their capabilities of playing at every level, because they are exposed to D1, D2, D3, NAIA athletes, which don't normally get the same attention as your big schools at D1 level. But that's not to say that there's not talent at all of those levels, just in different ways. So I think that this is a really fun way to be able to challenge girls to play in a different way, to play with different levels, and that usually brings out the best. Like you'll see people start to shine in that really quickly, because they and it might surprise you, but that you'll be able to see it pretty early on.
Awesome. Yeah. And then, so for you going in, when you're playing in a league like this, and you're, because you played in the summers, and I know you probably had a mindset of wanting to be a pro. And so how do you balance the fact that, the summer leagues can tend to be about individual development, like you're trying to better this because of your main season later or something like that. Yeah. How do you balance it as a player? Kind of what, how do you find chemistry still while knowing you're all coming from a different class? Yeah,
well, I think that's a really good question. I think there's a couple of things. One, I think the biggest thing that probably every college coach is telling their players is be safe over the summer. So a lot of girls are using this for fitness and ways to stay fit, get enough touches on the ball, get practice in every day, because there's not a lot of, if you just go home to your club team, you're usually playing with younger athletes or with boys, right? So that's kind of how it works. So coming into an organization like this is a really, really good way for them to stay fit, stay around the ball. But the coaches are probably saying be smart about that, right? Like be careful. So I think that balance is a little bit of a difficult one probably for some girls to figure out. Having said that, I think this is like the time when they can be like play however you want. You don't have to fit into that mentality of your college coach necessarily. So this is like a be free. Let's experiment with some things. Let's have some fun. Let's try new things. Let's be challenged by new players and make new friendships and relationships. So I think it goes both ways. For me, summer was always one of the best things that I encouraged my players to do and myself. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and it'll be an interesting mix because we have a lot of players who are from Minnesota. And who play either D1 here or abroad. So, people like Morgan Turner, who is a good forward for DePaul for a number of years. Maya Hansen plays at South Dakota State, and she had 14 goals in the Summit League last year. So you have players like that, and then you have we have some D2 standouts from Minnesota who have played at like Bemidji State, like I said. And we have people who also have then come from international paths and also around the country. So I joked, I don't know, you're not from Minnesota, but it's a Mighty Ducks 2 thing that's going on here. They're doing the Mighty Ducks thing. They have the Minnesota kids who won the Pee Wee tournament. Yeah. They have all the other kids, They got Julie the cat from Maine. It's
and look at how that turned out, right?
And I need to ask Jen Lukic if, she's not so different of age. It might have been an inspiration for her. But I bring that up to say, too, like, we'll see how that mix plays out because there are specific rules about subbing in the W League. So everything's kind of different. In college, you have unlimited subs technically, although usually not used so aggressive like that.
Yeah.
In the W League, you have 7 subs and across 3 windows, and not exclude. And you can also use halftime as a window. So get used to that. But so there'll be rotation because the squads have to be deep because some games will be Thursday and Sunday. Some and some players are busy doing other things with work or school. So it'll be interesting to see because there'll be rotation. Nicole Lukic, head coach, definitely confirmed that there'll be rotation. That's why it's a pretty big squad, maybe 26, 28. We'll give you the full count, but so I mean, talk about that being where you're normally a standout in college, like at Portland. You had 57 goals. We'll say it. We can say it. Danny had 57 goals. What? She's 4th all time at Portland. We're gonna sprinkle in all these Dannyisms as we go. But you're like, say in that case, like you're a big player, you're an impact player for your team, and maybe when you go back, either you are or you aren't. Maybe it's more competitive. How does that work in terms of how do you see players impacted by that, having to take a role or not get minutes?
Well, I think that is a challenge that's definitely a challenge for these coaches and the girls to figure out. Playing time in this kind of a thing, like as I was saying before, is a real balance, not only because of the health of the players, like you want to keep them at their playing time, you want to give them minutes, but you don't want to overwear them. Like this is not the time where you, especially at the beginning of the season, the summer season, you want to be like just playing them for every game 90 minutes or 120 minutes, so it's you want to weigh that, which is probably why they have such a deep roster. Not to mention there's going to be a lot of fluctuation of girls coming in and out, so they're not always going to have 26 with them.
Right.
So it's a real balance. Now, mentally, I think the girls, everybody always wants to play all the minutes, right? So I'm sure that's going to be a challenge for them, but that's a really good, this summer is a really good opportunity for them to figure out new ways of balancing their head in a different space with a different team and a different coach, and that's a challenge, but it's an important one for these girls to be challenged with.
Yeah, they've already and it's it's interesting to see who the leaders of the team will be because it's a difference with there's a lot of people who are pretty young and still like maybe the first year of college. Bayless Flynn is the high schooler who's missing class in the morning, the coolest excuse to miss class, that you could have, and. But so you're already seeing, I saw there was some coverage, and we're in the press box here. Shout out to all the coverage that's going on about Aurora at the Star Tribune, Soda Soccer, some other places. But I saw Nicole Lukic say like they had named captains. So Sarah Fuller, not surprisingly, is a captain, and she's one of the more experienced players, having played at Vanderbilt and at North Texas, and then more kicking exploits, obviously. And then another captain was Mackenzie Langdock, who's from the Gophers, and she's a defender who's played. I know she's played 4 years, I think, for them, or if not 3. So clearly there's leaders standing out, and there's already talking about there's 4 keepers, and that they're learning from each other. So that's cool to see. But and it'll be cool to see also. I think one other player who is a veteran, and it's the one player who is years out from college, is Christelle Yewa, and she is on her way to being a dentist. She passed her boards this spring, so it's just like it's cool. These women are impressive, and so that's a cool one. I have a feeling we'll see maybe some fans start a little bit of dental related chanting. I have no idea. I really do. But
I hope the drums will come out too. Yeah.
Well, and I want to give a shout out too. We'll wrap up the pregame show in a little bit, but I want to give a shout out to Ravon Tillette, and I don't have the French tongue to give it the accent it needs, but they are the supporters group that started really early on in response to Aurora being created, and they're really cool. They're selling memberships and scarves. I know we're going to see people here with flags, and so I know people love, like at Minnesota United games, seeing the Wonder Wall and seeing the supporters. We're going to see how the supporter culture develops here, which I should absolutely ask you about. You played in arguably, Seattle or whoever else, Atlanta and Austin. Minnesota has really good ones too. Portland, though, probably most people would agree. It's maybe the best atmosphere or the most intense. Do you think that? You played for the Reign as well. I
will say at the Reign, again, sorry, Seattle, but the Reign did not have the kind of support that the Sounders did.
Was that at Starfire then?
No. So the first year was at Starfire. Then we went to. Now I'm forgetting the name of it, of course. It was in downtown. It was a high school football stadium. It was actually a really cool stadium, but Yeah, the fans were not the same as Portland. So shout out to my Portland people. You guys have been in my heart from day one. I will never say that there's better fans than Portland because they win. They win all things outside of maybe Liverpool.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's a close comfort. You know?
It is what it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, but it's a wonderful place to go. But yeah, I mean, most women don't get a chance to play. Players don't get the chance to play, and the atmosphere is quite that big.
Yeah.
We're gonna see. I mean, and it's like, look, we just want all of the attendances to go up, but like we're gonna see today. There's going to be more people at this game. There's going to be more, it is. There's going to be more people today here than at some NWSL matches this weekend, and so just that's an impact, you know. And
it is.
And think of all the kids coming to this game.
Yeah.
All the girls seeing this, all the young boys seeing this.
This is, I mean, to me, this is the most exciting part, which is why I love what you guys are doing. That's why I wanted to be a part of it. But because Minnesota doesn't really have like a women's soccer culture there. This is the first really of the kind. The Minnesota men's team does have good following, but that is relatively recent. You know, like that's a relatively new team. So. Yeah, I mean, when I was in the NWSL, we went to some stadiums where we really, like, literally didn't have hardly anybody. And now, obviously, that's changing. There's a lot more attention around it. Shout out to the U.S. Women's National Team for bringing some attention to it. But, you know, this is why I'm really excited about these kind of things. This is the ground floor, and I'm really excited to see where we can go.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you. Yeah. Well, and I want to mention because Dani played in the NWSL in a time when salaries were... You wouldn't believe them. They might be $12,000, $12,600 maybe. It was the minimum, I think. But you know, so I did want to ask you this impromptu, but you know, the U.S. soccer teams coming to collective bargaining agreement. That's just such a cool thing, and it feels like it's not disconnected from the soccer culture driving this team, which is that there's so much appetite for supporting the women's game, and there's so much. And so as a player who never got paid, you know, what you were due or what, you know, what does it mean to see, you know, that investment in the women's game and the two unions, the men's players and women's players agreeing to split their bonuses, which is actually what made it fully equal.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I feel like that is one of the biggest victories in women's sports and equality outside of sports in general, because it really was like a acknowledgement of the success that team has had. Cindy Parler-Cohn was actually my coach at the Thorns at the time, so it's really cool to see where she's gotten to now and been able. She was the one who negotiated my first contract, which was pennies, and you know, and now to see her doing this on that level makes me really proud. So it was a huge moment it's a huge moment. I don't want to discredit that, and I think even more than that, the women's national team has done so much to take that fight on their backs, obviously for their benefits, but for the benefit of, you know, everybody who's here watching this game as well. So I'm super proud to have been a part of that, even though it was not what I would have loved to be paid at the time.
Shout out to I misnomered your first team. I called them the Philadelphia Freedom, which was the men's minor league team, but it was the Philadelphia Independence.
It was
Dani's first team that she never got to play for in the WPS.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, it is linked together, and that's amazing that you played for Cindy. And it's not surprising that the first time we have a woman in charge of U.S. soccer, by the way, who was a player, you know, when you have a worker in charge of management negotiations, someone who's been a worker, it gives more respect to those workers, and you know, it raises all tides because we see like it's going to give. By the way, the women's World Cup money is probably going to go up, and those men are going to cash in because they're splitting it, and the women usually do pretty good. Yes, and they're due. So
That's exactly right.
No,
That's exactly right. And it's great to see just that kind of attention. Like people thought that women's sports didn't deserve to be invested in because it wasn't going to be like a return on investment really. But now we're seeing the Champions League with this kind of attention going around, like just in the equality of pay. Now all of a sudden we're seeing Champions Leagues literally fill out the whole stadiums, which by the way is literally the first time that they've actually opened up the whole stadium to be sold out, and then
just give it the chance.
You know, and so now we're starting to see like this is actually what people want to see. They want to see women being successful in sports. They want to see like their daughters grow up to be able to play, you know, to do their dreams. So I love seeing it. I'm so excited to see how far it's come. And Cindy really, to again shout out to her, she really was she was on like even more than in the WUSA,
Wusa.
yeah, and she was with the 99ers, where they were literally like, they had their own first battle, so she's really come like full circle. And,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's been really cool to see.
Yeah, well, and it was clear when they announced. You can see the fans getting all excited. It's clear when the team was announced and what they raised. There was $1 million, and it was not. It seemingly it stopped. It capped. People wanted to keep investing.
Yeah.
When we went to the kit, I was at the kit reveal. Equal Time was there, and they sold it all out right away. And it's like people have been desperate to support women's soccer. So like, give them a place, because we know there's been great soccer going on in Minnesota, but just not in an opportunity of a public community ownership, and in a way that like is at we're at a 5,000 seat stadium.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it's the most exciting thing. So I'm so excited for it. I can't wait for you guys to watch the game and the team, and come support, please.
Yeah. So tune in. You can check it out. Go into WCCO's website. You can get the link to watch it there, or go to 11 Sports and stream the game. We'll be doing some highlights. We also have someone coming at halftime. We're pulling Dani, and then Dani's bringing in some other people. So
stick around.
Yeah, we'll have another pro, and someone who's deeply in the game, and maybe offer some insight on pregame fits. That's all I'll say.
Oh, dropping little hints.
It's too fun now. We have all these people joining us. It's too fun not to. No, thank you everybody for joining. We'll be back at halftime, and keep watching for some content from the actual stadium as it fills up.
Yeah.
Enjoy.